And welcome back, everyone, to the Pokemon Team Creation Series. And today's Pokemon Team Creation Series suggestion comes to us from Rainbow Prism, who asked the question, what is Ruby Gillman's Pokemon team? Now, for those of you who don't know who Ruby Gillman is, you're probably not missing much. That sounds mean to me to say, but I only know her from the animated film they made. Now, if I'm remembering correctly, there is a book series that the film was made from. Made from's not the right term. A book series that was turned into a film. And the film, when I saw it, my brief take, if you can find my review for it in there somewhere. And my brief take on the film, again, it was perfectly fine. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't great, but it was okay. I wouldn't really watch it again, but if I had kids and, they saw it previous, like, I'll watch it. There'd be no harm in showing it to them. It's just Little Mermaid fan fiction. You just made the Kraken the good guy and the mermaid the bad guy. You even made the mermaid look like Ariel. So, yeah. But she is a teenage Kraken, a humanoid-looking Kraken. They take on a more human-looking guys on land to live among the people. And so, the question is, what kind of team do I do for that? Is it almost all water Pokemon? Do I just go with Octopi? Well, let's find out. Seeing as she is a Kraken and one of her abilities is to grow to giant size, I need a relatively large cephalopod-esque Pokemon on the team. And Grapplock makes a lot of sense. She does a lot of her combat physically. She does have non-physical moves like Laser Eyes too, but she does physical combat. It makes sense that she would start like with a Clobbopus as her starter and then ultimately turn into a Grapplock. So that makes sense. Ironically, though, the next one isn't so much a octopus-based Pokemon or a Kraken or whatever. We don't really have a true Kraken Pokemon, by the way. That's something we probably need. Beyond that, though, we needed something that kind of worked for her on land. Now, should note, Grapplock is just a fighting type. It lives in the water, but it's just a fighting type. But how about a mon that actually lives exclusively on land, but looks like an octopus, kind of? I went with Toedscruel for this. Now, Toedscruel, admittedly, is a convergent evolution. Well, yes, a convergent evolutionary line to obviously the Tentacles family. Convergent evolution by the buyer Pokemon or animals in real life that evolved to look very similar to a different type of animal or Pokemon in this case, but are completely different. And I'll be honest, some of these didn't make any sense. And we saw, I think it was Sinistcha. Which is what the Poltergeist duplicate in Kitakami. If I remember correctly, despite supposedly being like chai tea, if I remember correctly, that's not actually a convergent. Let me put the sentence another way. Oop, not that one. Sinistcha is, I believe, a grass ghost Pokemon, if I'm remembering correctly. And I'm looking that up right now to confirm that little fact right here, which is fine. It's great. You know what? No problem whatsoever. Why does that need to be a convergent evolution? You understand what I'm saying? Sinistcha and Poltergeist are both grass ghost Pokemon. But again, my question simply comes down to, why does that need to be a convergent evolution? It's still keeping the ghost typing from the original line. With the Wiglet and Wugtrio line, they are completely different. They look completely different. With the Toedscruel line, they look pretty much, actually, they do look completely different from Digletts. With the Toedscruel line, they look more or less like Tentacruel and Tentacool, but they still are designed color-wise completely different. There are differences in terms of their design as well. For example, Tentacruel has spikes, whereas the Toedscruel has this little mushroom cap nose, little trunk. So there's still enough differences in the design and in the typing to at least say, okay, that's a convergent evolution, not a grass ground version of Tentacruel. Although you could still make their argument. With the Sinistcha line, you literally didn't give them a new typing completely. You just said, oh, it's a ghost grass, but it's not a regional Sinistcha. The logic doesn't work in my head there. If you're going to go convergent evolution style, you got to make a completely different type. Whereas, and you can do that too with regional variants, but at the same time, you can also just add a typing. In fact, we saw that a lot with a lot of the regional variants, is that they were really just adding a typing or swapping a typing out. Some of them went completely a different way, but otherwise, yeah. And by the by, the Toadscruel line could still work as just a regional variant of the Tentacruel line. It's got enough differences that you can still argue the convergent evolution, but I'd argue that this is what a ground grass Tentacruel would probably look like. Minus the fact that it is designed a little bit more like a mushroom cap. I would say you'd have to tweak the design a bit, but still. The point being is that I felt like the Sinistchai line was... I went on a tangent there, but I felt like this works fine for the convergent. This works well as a... Even though it's technically based on a Pokemon that is a jellyfish, I believe that's 8 legs, right? Yeah, or multiple legs anyway. A multi-legged creature, cephalopod-esque, not quite, but cephalopod-esque, that walks on land disguising itself as something it's not. So anyway, I digress. We also would add the Octillery line on here. It just makes sense. It's the first octopus Pokemon. It's got a bazooka. It fires the Octazooka, and this works well with her being able to fire out laser beams from her eyes. We'll have another mon on the list that can also kind of represent that. This next one, Frillish, the female Frillish. I'll admit, this one was more from one of the last ones to put on there. It's more of an aesthetic appeal because the design of Frillish does look, relatively speaking, akin to what Ruby kind of looks like a bit in her. I mean, you would have to change some things up, but in a general sense, it's got the shape. It's feminine looking in this case. Granted, the male version is blue when she is blue, so that would probably work better. But overall, it still works, I think. Really, it has this kind of regal look to it. I could have gone with the Jellicent evolution as well, but I wanted to keep one of these mon at least unevolved because she is still a teenager and still growing up. Speaking of which, mon that do grow up and are fully evolved, Lantern. I chose Lantern A again, Charge Beam. Some electrical attacks can act like laser eyes, which is abilities Krakens have in this world. But also the fact that it's the closest mon I could think of that's aquatic with a bioluminescence. It lights up its lanterns. There actually aren't, when you really look at it, many bioluminescent Pokemon to begin with. Like Shiinotic line, that's got bioluminescence to it. But if we're going by like aquatic Pokemon, there are, I think the Luminion line can do bioluminescence, if I'm not mistaken. I'm drawing a blank on a lot of the other water type mon in existence that could do it. Excuse me. So yeah, I think it worked is what I'm trying to get at. I think it does work. And last but not least, one of the abilities is a battle armor ability. So I ultimately went with Cloyster, who is one of the most tanky Pokemon you will ever find. It has a 180 base defense total. That's ridiculous. Its other stats really don't suffer that much, really. It's still, because it's got 100 and I want to say 35 for its entire base stat total, which is a legitimately solid number. I believe, if I remember correctly, Toadscruel is also it's like 515, and Grapplock is like 505 or like high 400s. So like her biggest hitter on the team is actually, well, technically speaking, her biggest hitter is Grapplock because it has a 118 attack. And Toadscruel is actually her fastest Pokemon with no joke, 120. Was it 120? What was the speed again on that thing? Hold on one second. It was like 120 or 100 because it's apparently Toadscruel's like two biggest stats. Sorry, two biggest stats are in speed and special defense. 1 second here. What was the damn thing's base stat total? Well, base stat. Two biggest stats again. They are, where is it? There we go. They are, 100 in speed and 120 in special defense. This thing is a damn tank. Like, this thing is a damn special tank. And it's a fast special tank, too. Like, holy crap. Like 100 base speed, that's no joke. There are plenty of faster Pokemon, but if you're at minimum 90 in your speed, you're a relatively speedy Pokemon. If you are anything above 100 or above, you are fast. And then if you get like above 110, now you're in the conversation of some of the fastest guys in the entire game. Okay, and so, yeah, and then like it's still got like 80 for special attack and 80. It's like its weakest stat is its physical stats. So like Tentacles is a special beast, really, at least in terms of the defensive side of things. But as always, the three big questions: how balanced is this team, and how well will this team do trying to become champion in any of the regions? Now, in terms of how balanced the team is, honestly, there's only 3 types that screw with this team. 2 of them aren't that bad, but one of them is a real beast of a weakness, and it's surprisingly not a weakness you would think. So flying, 2 of these mons struggle with flying. That's about it. Grapple Lock and Toedscool would struggle with flying. That's it. No big deal. Half this team is, however, weak to electricity. That is a little problematic. But the Lantern, luckily, is able to mitigate the overall weakness because it's already electric type. So that makes it at least not as bad, but that does mean electric gyms are going to be a bitch and a half. No, the actual biggest weakness of this team is grass, because you have 3 Mon that are water types that are straight out weak to grass with no resistance. Well, actually, you have 4 Mon here, all weak to grass, all water Mon. And ice, I definitely had to double check. While strong against grass, actually doesn't resist grass. So, yeah, 2/3 of this team gets clipped by grass types. So, the next question is, as always, and now we end the video, how well would this team ultimately do in any given region, in any given game? And as always, from the top corner to the bottom corner is the order in which she would have her Pokemon. Now, if we're going with Kanto, her biggest problem, she'd have no real issue with the early gyms. Yeah, Octillery would be problematic for against Lieutenant Surge, but you have a ground grass type there to can be completely immune. No, your problem immediately comes in the form of Erica. You have no real way of beating Erica, because by the time you get to Erica, you still won't have Grapple Lock. You'll still have a Clobberpuss. The only fully evolved mons on the team will be Octillery, which is going to get clipped fast, and then Toedscool, which isn't going to be able to do a lot, and half her Mon no poison moves, or at least a good chunk of her Mon no poison moves. So that honestly is kind of where your journey would end. If we're keeping everything relative to the levels, that's where it would end. If you're somehow able to get past her, though, you shouldn't have much problem with either Koga, even Sabrina wouldn't be that big of an issue. It wouldn't be easy, Sabrina, but you should still be able to get past Sabrina. Blaine and Giovanni, both no problems. You have type advantages there. Honestly, you struggle immediately once you get to the Elite Four, because you have 2 Mon on the team that could maybe do something against some of her Pokemon with Lantern and Toedscool. The problem is she's an Ice type gym Elite Four member, so she has if I remember correctly, she has a Slowbro on the team, but she also got a Jinx. She's got a Dugong. She's got if I remember correctly, she does have a Lapras, and I think she has a Slowbro. The point is that you can only get, and several of her Mon would outspeed your Lantern, which is one of the only things clipping a giant chunk of those Mon. So you'd struggle immediately with her. Bruno's not that difficult. His Onyxes are going down quick, and you should be okay against his other fighting types. Agatha is a little problematic, but at the end of the day, it's Lance you're going to struggle with, because the only strong Mon you have against Lance is Lantern for his Gyarados and Cloyster for his Dragons, and that Cloyster, while strong, is not going to be able to take out the whole team, because while it has amazing physical stats, its special stats lack, certainly. And then you're not going to be able to get through Blue just because he's got, depending on what team he's going with, he's going to have guaranteed 1 Grass type, which is going to Executor, or 1 Electric type. Or you're just going to be, or Venusaur, or you're going to still have to deal with the Alakazam, or the flying weaknesses that 2 of his Mon. His team's too balanced. So right out the gate, but I think you're stopped at Erica. What about Johto? Even bigger problem here with Johto, because you're probably not even getting past the first gym. That's the effed up part. You're not getting past Faulkner, because he's got 2 flying types against your 1 underleveled a Clobberpuss, which won't even have a move that could really do anything to these Mon. If you even somehow manage to get past there, you then got to deal with Bugsley, who's got type resistance against your fighting moves on Clobberpuss, and type advantage over your damn Toadscruel. And so you're not getting past those two gyms. So it's kind of irrelevant at that point if you could become the champion here. Honestly, I'll be honest, I'm not even sure you could beat Faulkner with any of these individual Mon's previous forms. You're not going to be able to beat it with a Frillish at that level, I don't think. The only one you might be able to do is Chinchou because it might be able to learn like Spark or something at a low level. I can't remember what the move learning is, but Chinchou is the only one, if you started with it, you could maybe do it. So you're not going to be able to become champion at Johto. Well, what about Hoenn? Now, Hoenn is where it gets a little bit trickier. Most of the gyms are actually pretty okay if you can get to them. Watson's going to be a struggle, though, because once you get to Watson, you'll have still not a fully evolved Grapploct deck. You'll still only have a Clobberpuss. But because, unless you're doing Emerald, he has only Magnemite and Magneton on the team. I believe that's what he has, like two his main move, mon is like Magneton. Because of the Steel type, Fighting type moves are still going to work. And you still have immunity thanks to Toadscruel. And it'd still be Tentacruel. Not Tentacruel, but Toadscruel, I should say. Your artillery's still going to get clapped, though. It would be a struggle, but I think you actually still could beat him. Then you'd have really no problems until you get to Juan and Wallace. Those two are water-type gym leaders, and except for Lantern, you have no good answer for that type on this team. And Toadscruel, but Toadscruel's part water too, so even though water goes neutral, it's still not good. And Lantern's going to get taken down pretty quick because of Wish Cash, or just faster Mon on the team, because most of his Mon are going to be at a level where, they're either at a level, or they're an evolutionary type, or they're a species that are just faster than a 65 base speed Lantern. And then you're going to have to struggle through a lot more of that fight. Granted, with Grapploct dealing with the Celios and possibly Toadscruel dealing with the Milotic, I still think it's possible you could win. Then you hit the wall, which is the Elite Four. Those two, that Shiftry and the Cacturn alone on the Dark team, takes out 2/3 of your team. So, granted, Grapploct should be able to help you out a lot. So maybe you're hoping the Ghost-type gym, or Elite Four member, you shouldn't have that much problem with. Glacia only really has strength against your Toadscruel, so that's not a big issue. It's Drake and Steven. This team is not equipped to take on dragons. The only one you got on a team that can do it is Cloyster. And remember, I look at this from a natural moveset perspective, not from a so that's the reason, by the way, I keep Cloyster and that, granted, with move relearns, all that doesn't really matter. That's why I kind of kept Cloyster as the last one, because it evolves through stone, and once you evolve through a stone, you can't naturally learn moves. But apart from Cloyster, who would probably be going down pretty quick, actually, because of the amount of earthquakes those Flygons have, the amount of like other moves the rest of his team have, this team does not deal with dragons well. And then you still got to deal with Steven, who's a Rock and Steel Gym Elite Four member, champion. And none of these Mon handled Steel well at all. Rock, obviously, water handles Rock fine, plus grass. But the only one that does is Grapploct, and that thing's going to go down hard once Metagross comes out and does Psychic or whatever psychic move it had on it. Or if you bring out Skarmory, they're going for neutral to it. Like, you can't become champion of Hoenn. Let's speed through this here. You're going to immediately struggle with Maylene and Sinnoh. The other two are easy, relatively speaking. Even work with 3 Mon. With one fighting type, like Cloudpush, you should be fine. But Maylene, no matter how you look at it, Fantina is actually surprisingly not as difficult as you may think. Because at the time you get to Fantina in Platinum, you should actually already have your Octillery, and your Toadscruel should be close. Fantina is going to be difficult but not impossible. But Maylene's the one where it doesn't really matter which version you're using. I don't know if you can get past her. Because your Grapploc's not a Grapploct yet. Neither is your Toadscruel. The only thing you really got is Octillery. And that's not even a really good Mon overall. It's got good special attack, but that's about it. If you somehow manage to do that, you would still have to deal with Candace and her ice types, and particularly her Abomasnow, which, again, grass ice, it's going to be problematic for the entirety of this team. It's going to be problematic for nearly all of it, except for Grapple Lock. Grapple Lock's the only answer you really have for that. But otherwise, yeah, you're going to be struggling. Also, there's Rourke's dad, the Steel-type gym leader, who, again, except for Grapple Lock, you have a problem with Steel on this team. And if you are somehow able to manage to get to Elite Four, by the way, you still got to then deal with Wagner, not Faulkner, but Wagner, who's got 4 very impressively strong Pokemon. He's also got an Octillery, first off. He's got the Luxray. He's got the Ambipom. And I can't remember what his actual other electric type was. He's got only actual 2 electric types on the team. What was Wagner's Pokemon? 4th Pokemon. I mean, if you go into, like, say, Platinum or whatever, he's got like an Electivire on the team. I'm blanking on what the other electric type was on his team. I don't know if you can remind me what it is. But point is that you're going to struggle immensely with, because you don't actually have a good answer to electric types on the team. You just don't. Your only actual weakness is ground, which I think if they made a new typing, I think that whatever the typing is has to be strong against electric, because electric is arguably one of the better types because it just has only one weakness. And if you got them on, like, say, Electros with Levitate, or a flying electric type, well, then you, in essence, have, well, no. If you have an electric type with Levitate, that's basically it. You have them on with no weakness. And that's kind of broken. I think you need to give electric types an actual weakness. I think Rock should have been a weakness of electric types. It just makes sense, in my opinion. But regardless, once you get to Elite Four, Birth is not a big problem. Aaron's not really a huge issue, although you're not that strong against them. You should still be able to handle them okay. Flint should be fine. Even was it Will or Lucian? I think that Lucian is the psychic gym leader there, our Elite Four member. It's you can't deal with Cynthia. This team is not equipped for Cynthia. Her Rose Raid alone is going to cleave through the majority of your team. And then you have nothing on this team designed to take on that Spiritomb that she opens up with. So you are fine. There's no way you could become champion in Sinnoh, I don't think. Unova, honestly, you struggle with Roxy right out the gate in Black and White too. And you can make it, I think, to the Bug Gym leader, whose name I always forget as well. But in both versions, when you make it there, you still only got a Clobberpuss, a Toadstool, and an Octillery. Not good odds. So you're and he's got a Leavanny on that team, which is going to take out that Octillery quick. So I think you're kind of stopgapped right there. And even if you make it past there, you still got to deal with Elisa, who does freaking electric types and has 2 Emolga on the team. So your one mom that's not really hurt by electric types is now going to be clipped by Aerial Ace. So once again, no, you cannot become champion in this team. What about Kalos? This one is another one where it's like Clobberpuss is going to struggle with Viola right out the gate. And then even if you're able to get past that, Grant is one you actually shouldn't have that big of a problem with, thanks to having Clobberpuss on the team. And with Toadstool being around level 25 as well, you'd be close to evolving it. So you should have some decent grass-type moves to take over at least Tyrant. Then you're dealing with, I can't remember the fighting-type gym leaders. Once you get to the later gyms, I kind of forget their names a little bit. Not because they don't have a memorable design, just not memorable names. The fighting type gym leader, you are gonna struggle a bit with that. But I don't think to the point where you're gonna be in trouble. Ramos, though, is a problem. He's gonna be able to take out half your team, no problems. And the other 2 you have on your team are gonna struggle immensely because you're still not fully evolved at that point. If you can manage past that, though, most of the Elite Four is not that difficult. Okay, it's not that easy. The only one you have a clear win against is the Fire type Elite Four member. Dradtha, the Steel type, and the Water type gyms are Elite Four members are all extremely difficult to deal with. And then there's Diantha herself, who right at the gate with a Hawlucha and Flying Press will take out the Toadstool and the Grapple Lock. Not to mention the fact that you got a Tyrantrum and an Aurorus on the team, and a Goodra, and a Gourgeist as a grass type, and then Mega Gardevoir. Once again, you can't become champion here. to summarize sum this up real quick because we're getting much further than I wanted to. Galar, you're pretty much going to stop at Raihan. Now, despite the fact that he's got a rock and a ground type, along with the flying dragon, the ground dragon and the steel dragon, the fact is that as a tag team match, you are screwed against him with this team. Because he's setting up sandstorms. The only one's going to be resistant is Toadscroll. And you're going to also be dealing with all the attacks from, say, Flygon, which, again, no special resistance to Dragon on this team. The freaking Duraludon, which Gigantamax is going to be resistant to the Cloyster, the one thing you have against dragons. And even if you manage to beat Raihan, you can't beat Lance because once again Leon. Can't beat Leon because once again, Aegislash alone is problematic because your Grapple Lock, the one thing that would be good against the Steel type, can't deal with the Ghost type. So it's already on the back foot. So right there, you're struggling. But then you add on, again, I always bring it up, and it's not even his damn ace, Dragapult. It literally has Thunderbolt, Dragon Breath, Flamethrower, and Shadow Ball. It literally has perfect coverage for this entire team. For this entire team. It's got the electric attacks to take care of the 3 water-type Pokemon. It's got a fire-type move to deal with the Toadscroll. Then it's got Dragon Breath to paralyze or do whatever it needs to do with the other 2. And it's got Shadow Ball. Plus, being a dragon means that none of Grapplock's fighting-type moves are going to work. So the only thing you got going for you at this point is the damn Lantern. And that's not going to beat a Dragapult unless it knows an ice move. So, and even then, you're going to have to luck out because the damn thing will outspeed everything on this team. I always bring up the Dragapult, but that Dragapult is legitimately, if you don't have something to deal with it, a menace. And then there's the Haxorus that comes immediately after it with a godforsaken attack power. So, yeah, no, you can't be champion in Galar. But last but not least, what about Paldea? Well, the short answer is no. You're not even making it past the 3rd gym in this place. Because you're starting with Cloudbuss. If you're going by the levels, the Katie, the bug gym leader, is first, and she's got 3 different bugs. Now, granted, they only have, 3 and a normal, but Teddiursa turns into a bug, so that's why we talk about it. And bug resists fighting. Plus, the damn low kicks alone, or not low kicks, but the other one, the one that evolves into low kicks. What's the name of that one again? That one, which is called Nimble. That was it, Nimble. That damn Nimble knows double kick. So even if it's going to be taking down most of your HP anyway. The long and short here, as I always say, ironically when it goes on for this long, is that no, this team cannot become champion in any region. Even if I evolve the Frillish into a Jellicent, it doesn't matter. Like typing wise, it's just not good. It's not good against this team is not good because it's just so water heavy. It's so water heavy, and there aren't any real heavy hitters on this team. The heaviest hitter physically is Grapplock. The heaviest defender physically is Cloyster. Heaviest special defense is Toadscroll, which is all well and good, but if you can't dish out the damage or have a good enough strategy, or if you can't hit the levels that need to be hit in order to evolve into forms that would be able to handle certain gym leaders, then you have a problem. You have a problem. I digress, though. Maybe I'm wrong. Do you think this? Maybe you think this team could be any of the gyms, and any of the champions in Elite Four? Let me know in the comments below. But that is the team for Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken. Join us next week for our next one. Until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys for the next one.